Trump said that he was going to impose a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum from all countries, including Canada, and that would come into force, or he would sign an executive order today. What's your reaction to that, and how should Canada respond?
Well, Canada will respond if there is an executive order. In the meantime, what I can say is that we have said to our European friends that we were the first line of defense, but it was possible that they would be targeted since President Trump announced that he threatened to do that. So Canada and Mexico are the first ones, but Europeans know that they may be targeted as well. They were anticipating that. They are working with us about how can we have a cohesive way to convince the U.S. administration that trade wars are painful for everyone, negative for everyone, and that's something that you should do between friends.
Do you think there should be retaliation? Should Canada respond with a retaliation and match these tariffs?
Again, it will be for the government of Canada to decide how they will react if there is an initiative done, not only a declaration from the U.S. administration.
À quel point les alliés européens et français sont prêts à se tenir derrière le Canada? Ils sont prêts à faire des affaires avec le Canada?
Ils sont 27 à l'Union européenne et vous avez d'autres pays. Vous avez la Norvège, vous avez la Suisse. Et le Premier ministre sera demain à Bruxelles. Et le président Macron et le Premier ministre se sont rencontrés hier, comme vous le savez. Et il y a un fort sentiment que chaque pays, bien sûr, a des intérêts qu'il doit faire prévaloir. Le Canada n'est pas le Mexique et le Mexique n'est pas le Canada, mais on essaie quand même de se coordonner. Et on va le faire avec les Européens et l'Union européenne. Madame von der Leyen sont très, très orientés vers cette nécessité d'essayer autant que possible de réagir de façon très cohérente entre nous.
Il y a cette idée de dire que le Canada devrait peut-être, en plus de la CETA, se joindre à l'Union européenne. Est-ce que c'est farfelu de le penser?
Et avant de décider si on veut joindre l'Union européenne, il faudrait décider si on veut bien les États-Unis comme la 11e province canadienne.
So Donald Trump has also said that he thinks Canada is not a viable country without the United States. What is your response to that? And do you think that impacts Canada's reputation in Europe?
If Canada is not a viable country, show me a viable country. It's one of the best countries of the world, and Europeans want to work with us completely. They know they need us. They knew they like us. Now they realize more and more than they need us. The CETA agreement, the trade agreement with the EU, has a spectacular improvement since the implementation of CETA in 2017, a growth of 2/3 of our trade with Europe. But the chief economist of Global Affairs Canada said in his report that we should do more, that about 57% of Canadian companies are using CETA as we speak, when they 100% may not be realistic, but there's a lot of room for improvement. And our trade commissioners are working very hard to make sure that it will happen. There is no successful diversification for Canada if it's not also with Europe. The EU is the second biggest economy of the world. 15 of the 25th wealthiest countries of the world are European, and 15 of the 25th most democratic countries of the world are European, and Canada is the most European of non-European countries of the world. So we need to work very harder together. And now that we see that, unfortunately for now at least, the U.S. administration is not as reliable as we thought, not respecting treaties as we thought, we need Europeans and Canadians to work very closely together. And as the special envoy for Europe, I work very hard for that.
Monsieur Dion, peut-être en français, parler de cette amélioration qui peut être faite des relations entre le Canada et l'Europe. À quel point on a de la marge, comme vous l'avez dit en anglais, pour améliorer? Oui, s'il vous plaît.
Et, depuis la mise en œuvre de l'AECG, l'accord de commerce entre l'Union européenne et le Canada, la croissance de notre commerce est spectaculaire. Elle a cru des 2/3, malgré la pandémie, des 2/3. C'est une forte croissance. Malgré cela, l'économiste en chef d'Affaires mondiales Canada a calculé que seulement 57% de nos entreprises qui peuvent utiliser l'AECG, le CETA, le font vraiment. Donc, il y a 100% peut-être pas réaliste, mais il y a beaucoup de marge pour amélioration et on travaille très fort pour cela, pour l'obtenir, cette croissance, parce qu'il n'y a pas de diversification efficace pour le Canada sans l'Europe. L'Europe, l'Union européenne seule, c'est la deuxième économie du monde après les États-Unis. 15 des 25 pays les plus riches du monde sont européens et 15 des pays les plus démocratiques du monde sont européens. Il faut renforcer toujours davantage notre présence en Europe.
Is it time for Canada to start talking about potentially joining the EU?
What I would say about that is, before we think about joining the EU, we need to decide if we want the US as our 11th province.
Do you think the U.S. is still a friend? Because you wrote about how there can't be tariffs among friends. So is the U.S. a friend? Yes or no?
The American people and Canadian people always will be close friends. We have so much ties together. And our economies are so intertwined in a way that if you hurt one, you hurt the other one. As you know, maybe, yes, we blame Canada because we have 75% of our trade with the U.S. It's why we need more diversification, but we should not blame ourselves too much about that, because all countries trade with their neighbors, and it will never change. Take France. France, if I tell you they trade more with Germany than the US, maybe you're not surprised. With Italy than the US, with Spain with the US, and even tiny Belgium, they trade more than with the US because it's their neighbors. So Canada should improve its diversification, as I said, but we should improve always our relationship with our great American friends. We need it.
Trump suggested yesterday
do you think that there are 10
one after the other one, please.
there are 10 countries who have not yet ratified CETA. In the context of this trade war and what the U.S. is threatening, both in Canada and to the EU, do you think those countries' hesitancy to ratify the deal is misplaced? Are there concerns about signing?
The main reason why 17 out of 27 ratified, the 10 that are remaining, it's not hurting the trade. It's why they don't have the political motivation to ratify officially, because they have some lobbies that are concerned, and it's creating political difficulties for them. In France, it is beef, but beef represents almost nothing in our trade with France. In Italy, it's wheat. In Greece or in Cyprus, it is cheese. But at the end of the day, 98% of our trade is not linked to that. Beef is a fraction, point something of our trade with France. So I'm very optimistic that this difficulty to have 27 countries ratifying tomorrow is not hurting our trade with Europe. What we need to do is to say to our Canadian companies, oh, it's great to trade with Maine or with Oregon, but to trade with Belgium of the Netherlands is good as well. To trade with the state of New York or California is great. Don't forget France and Germany. It's fantastic there, and UK. We have a lot of potential in Europe, even though our neighbor is the US.
Trump said last night that Canada shouldn't assume that the US would defend it. What do you think of that?
About defense, if you don't defend Canada, you cannot have an effective defense for the US. We are all together. We are all together up to Ukraine. That's very key. It's why NATO is so important, so key, and we need to work hard for that.
Are you confident that other NATO allies would defend Canada if Canada is attacked? And the U.S. isn't prepared to help us?
We are great allies. It's the biggest, the strongest alliance of the world, and it will continue this week. Canada will do everything for that.
En matière de représailles, M. Dion, est-ce que l'Union européenne et le Canada devraient adopter une approche commune?
En matière de
représailles,
chaque pays va avoir sa stratégie, mais il faut se coordonner. Il faut se coordonner, ça c'est sûr. Et c'est ce que le Premier ministre et Mme Ing font à Bruxelles. Le Premier ministre aujourd'hui à Paris, demain à Bruxelles, M. Champagne. Tout le monde travaille fort là-dessus depuis des années. Une chose que je veux ajouter, c'est que la dernière fois, les Européens ont eu beaucoup d'admiration sur la façon dont on avait géré la relation avec M. Trump la première fois. Donc, ils nous font grandement confiance. Ils comprennent que le Canada a des liens très étroits avec les États-Unis, que les Européens n'ont pas de façon aussi intense, non seulement avec la Maison-Blanche ou avec le Congrès, mais avec les États. Nous sommes une fédération. Nos provinces travaillent très fortement avec les États américains, les universités, les familles, les relations peuple à peuple. Et tout ça fait en sorte que les Européens s'appuient beaucoup sur nous pour avoir une stratégie qui sera efficace au bout du compte et qui nous évitera une guerre des tarifs qui sera nuisible à tout le monde, y compris aux Américains.
Any of your counterparts about supporting Canada given Trump's threats to annex the country? Have you spoken to any of your counterparts in France or Europe about supporting Canada given Trump's threats to annex the country?
To mutually support each other. They know they need us, and we need a cohesive relationship with our friends to explain to our American friends that we should not go there.
Do you think Trump's serious about taking Canada over? Do you think he's serious about making Canada the 51st state?
Oh, the Prime Minister answered this question.
The Prime Minister did answer this question, and he said that he thought that Trump was after Canada's critical minerals. What do you think Trump is after?
But critical minerals is key indeed. It's why Europeans are so willing to work with us, because they don't have the resource. You don't have a lot of countries in the world that are a democracy, friendly democracy, with a top economy in terms of technology and so on, and a workforce, and having the resource, and being almost a neighbor, the Atlantic. And it is Canada. They know that. So our natural resources will be key for the digital transition and key for the zero carbon economy transition, the energy transition. They want to work with us about that. Canada needs to send the resource to the market in a sustainable way. And for that, we need a lot of investments from the US and for Europe. And from Europe.
What kind of conversations are you having with Denmark? Because Trump is also threatening to take over Greenland. Are you having conversations with that country, and what are they like?
Of course, we talk to all our friends with Denmark, and we know that we are custody for the Arctic. Canada is responsible for 25% of the Arctic. So we work with Denmark, we work with Norway, with all our friends, and there's no way that we will consider normal that countries are threatening themselves. You know that according to international law, it's not only to invade a neighbor that is against international law and the Charter of the UN, it is to threaten. So we are against that, of course.
So you think the Americans have broken international law then? So you must think the Americans have broken international law.
I'm just saying that in order to respect international law, you don't threaten your neighbors by invasion.
Should the UN investigate the U.S. then? Should the UN investigate the U.S. then?
I'm just saying the facts of the law. Do what you want with it. But the international law said you don't threaten your neighbors.
Oil and gas
relations then?
Are more oil and gas sent to Europe?
Well, it must be done in a sustainable way. In Canada, as always we say, we need to bring the resource to the market, but in a sustainable way. And we are working hard to have international rules for that. That, for example, you don't accept that children are working in a factory. There are some rules that Canada wants to see respected, including to bring the resource to the market.
Are you watching the Liberal leadership race? What do you think?
Oh, come on.